Hello, welcome back to my kitchen for another Tuesday episode. Today I'm so excited to share with you 5 of my favorite summertime recipes. The reason why these are some of my favorite is because they use a ton of seasonal produce, but they also are really good for being versatile and using whatever you have on hand. So if you want to go ahead and download this recipe packet, you can actually follow along, and I'm going to go through each of these recipes and give you some examples of how you can substitute what you maybe found at the farmer's market or what you've got in your garden. So the first recipe we have is a summer vegetable minestrone. And I know a lot of times you're not thinking soup in the summer, but this is a really good way to use a lot of your summertime produce, and then you can easily freeze this for use later on when you've got a cold fall day. So we're gonna take a tour around some different cuisines. Minestrone is an Italian cuisine. A lot of different cultures around the world have found unique ways of using either leftover vegetables or whatever vegetables they have on hand. So that's why this is so great and it's so versatile. So in the minestrone, for example, the original recipe calls for diced tomatoes. Of course, you can use fresh tomatoes when they're in season. We've got some really good ones from Miller Farms, so I'm actually making them in a sauce right now as we speak. So definitely use fresh tomatoes when they're in hand, but in the wintertime, you can always use canned. Other than that, we have garlic, of course, kale, which you can easily substitute for other leafy greens, such as the Swiss chard, which I just picked from the garden, or spinach would be another really good one if you have it. Carrots, onion, zucchini, and then we've got some beans in that recipe. So again, on each of these recipes, you'll find a pro tip with some recommendations for different substitutions. So in this Italian dish, substituting something like zucchini or eggplant, I have all my veggies out, they're so delicious. Those would be really great things in that soup. So it's a really versatile dish. It also has a ton of spices in it. So if you have an herb garden and you have fresh basil or oregano, parsley, you can definitely substitute that for the dried herbs that are in the recipe. Another thing that this particular soup is super flexible with is you can either use fresh Parmesan cheese that's grated, or if you have a Parmesan rind, it's actually meant to use up the leftover rind. So you can throw the rind in your soup, let it cook all day, and then retrieve it, but you've got the really great flavor in your soup. The protein in this particular recipe is coming from the beans, but if you'd like some meat, you could definitely add some chicken or sausage or ground beef and give it a little bit more flavor. So that is, we stopped in Italy, and that is the Italians' version of a great dish that uses a ton of either leftover vegetables that are about to go bad or ones you've got in the garden. Okay, next up is we're gonna go to Mexico. So this is a one-pot Mexican black bean and quinoa dish. Again, in the pro tip, there's some recommendations for different substitutions, but you're gonna see some really common vegetables, some green peppers, some onions, some tomatoes, also some sweet corn. So if you are still looking for ways to use sweet corn, that would be a great option. Now you can definitely substitute and add in the zucchini again. That would be a really good option, or any kind of different peppers you have. So if you want more spice, then you could do something like a jalapeno, or you could do any of the amazing peppers that I see at the Miller Farms market. So switch those up. Okay, now we're gonna go to Asia, and I think this is probably my favorite way to use up leftover vegetables is to do a fried rice. And fried rice is literally a leftover dish. It's meant to use day-old rice, so if you have leftover rice from something else and vegetables that are not looking so great in the fridge, definitely use those for this dish. In the original recipe, we have onion, garlic, ginger, celery, some water chestnuts, but this is another recipe where you can substitute just about anything you want. It also has celery and carrots. You could also do peppers, you could do snow peas, you could do zucchini. So again, check out the pro tip for some other options. Another recommendation that I have for that fried rice is to give it a Thai flavor, a Thai twist, is to use fish sauce. If you've never tried it before, I highly recommend it. It gives it a really good umami flavor. And you can also substitute the protein in that in this rice really easily. The protein here is actually just egg, but if you'd like, you could definitely add tofu, you could add chicken, pork, whatever you would like. Okay, number 4, we're gonna go to Europe. And talk about one of my favorite dishes, and one of my 11-year-old's favorite dishes is the spicy farmer's hash. So hash, the word actually originated from a word in French, which I probably can't pronounce because I don't speak French, but it was very popular, especially in World War II, for using up leftover meat, or again, the vegetables that they just had on hand when there were rations going on and they didn't have a lot of options. So hash is super duper flexible. You can put in it whatever you want. This particular hash it starts with chorizo, which gives it the spicy flavor, but if you're not a fan of spice or you want something different, you could either leave it out or do ground beef, ground pork, something like that. And then the vegetables in this hash, we have potatoes, zucchini, yellow squash, and some kale. But again, substituting for a butternut squash is a really good option in place of the potato, or you could do a sweet potato, add in some zucchini or other types of squash. You could even do something like eggplant if you wanted a little bit of variety. So try that. Farmer's hash is one of our favorite. The last recipe I have is a 1-pan sausage and vegetables, and this is actually a dish that I made spur of the moment over the weekend because we needed something super quick. So this is really versatile because you can again change both the protein and the carbohydrate and the vegetable. So for the protein in this recipe, it's just using sausage, like an Italian sausage link. The other day we actually cut up chicken thighs and used that in addition to cut up brats, and that was a really good flavor. So you could substitute that also with beef or pork or something else. You could also make it vegetarian by leaving out the meat and cracking eggs over the pan before it's done baking for the protein. And then the vegetable also is super flexible. So basically anything you're roasting in the oven, you could use in this. So in the recipe, we're thinking of things like zucchini and peppers, but you could do something like broccoli or cauliflower if you wanted to give it a little bit of a different option. So don't forget to go download that recipe packet with these 5 options, and make sure you look at the pro tip because they will give you recommendations for all of these things. If you have any recommendations of things that you love to use up your summer produce, I would love to hear them. So please drop a comment with what you guys are making at home, and I am gonna get back to cooking this delicious eggplant lasagna test recipe we have. So thanks guys for stopping in. We'll see you next week.